Hello everybody. Welcome back to another classic comic live stream. Thank you for listening in, and if you're listening on a live stream replay, then thank you for doing that as well. So it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag tonight. I mean, mostly it's going to be Disney stuff. A lot of Disney, and I'm going to talk a little about some DCU related stuff, some rumors. But first, I wanted to start by talking about the D&D movie. So, that opened this week. I saw it last night. Now, I wanted to have my review up and running on my channel before the stream, but I had a research paper I had to get done, and I wound up working on that late into Friday evening. So I didn't see the movie until 10:30 last night. And I was going to try and get it done today, but I had other things and just wasn't able to get around to it. So I'll probably post that tomorrow, but I will talk about it a little bit. I don't know. I haven't checked to see how it's doing in terms of box office, but I went to a 10:30 showing last night, and there were maybe 20 people in the theater. So at least where I was, it didn't seem to exactly be packing them in. But for the most part, I mean, I actually found it a fairly enjoyable film, but there are some caveats to that. Now, you may recall a little while back, the writers said that they intentionally emasculated the male characters, and yeah, so they were true to their word. They they absolutely did. The movie, to a large degree, kind of follows the Marvel formula. In, in fact, it feels like a Marvel film. It feels like they kind of a cross between a Marvel movie and some kind of medieval fantasy. And to give you an idea, like the first scene when the movie begins, so Chris Pine and what's her name, Michelle Rodriguez, their characters are in prison. And when the movie starts, when we first see him, he's Chris Pine's character is knitting. He's knitting a pair of mittens for real. Yeah, and it just kind of goes from there. So the movie is simply put, the male characters are all basically wimps and kind of idiots and ineffectual, and the women are all strong and smart and confident and in charge. Even the main villain, because if you watch the trailers, it sort of peddles what's his face, Hugh Grant as the main villain. He's not really. He's just basically the real villain is his female assistant, who's a sorceress. She's the real villain. He's just sort of this kind of boob who's they're using as a front. And yeah, I mean, and the movie's also, it's also very kind of, it's almost a semi comedy. It's an action comedy. I mean, when you're hiring Hugh Grant to be the villain, what do you think's going to happen? Obviously, that's kind of what they're going to go for. Hugh Grant is, I mean, back in the '90s, he became famous mostly doing what I guess romantic comedies, and his characters were always these kind of timid, sort of fumbling, sort of bashful characters. But women liked him anyway because he was cute. And that's he plays this kind of con man. But Chris Pine's character, he's sort of a screw up. Oh, and he's a bad dad. The bad dad trope is very much in effect. And he even says that at one point. Even he has a daughter at one point. Even tells his daughter, "I'm a bad father." And there's a sorcerer, a male sorcerer named Simon, and he's a complete, sort of milk toast. And look, he's a sorcerer. You don't expect them to be big strapping guys necessarily, but the whole thing with his character is that he has no confidence. The only male character in it that's really not a joke is there's this paladin character called, I think his name was Zinc, and he's portrayed as kind of a badass. But of course, he's not a white man, so he can do that. Uh, but honestly, I mean, it's the movie is so frustrating because there's a good movie here. It's actually a fairly, for the most part, a kind of fun, entertaining sort of romp. Some good twists and turns, some plot twists I definitely didn't see coming. Hey, Lord Thaw, thank you for stopping by, man. I appreciate it. Hail to you. Thank you. And there's some good stuff to like in this D&D movie, but I mean, just as a man watching it, it's just so frustrating the way the crap they're pulling with the male characters. It just made it really difficult for me to like the film. And honestly, as a guy, I find it hard. I have a hard time recommending to other men to go see this movie because it's so misandrist itself. But like I said, I will probably have my full review of that up tomorrow. There are some fun things, if you're a longtime D&D player, there are some fun things in it. A lot of Easter eggs. They Let me bring the trailer up here. Maybe that'll help to so so the movie is set in the Forgotten Realms, and if you play D&D, you know what that is. That's kind of their main sort of setting. And it's a kind of, pseudo medieval sort of patchwork of medieval Europe for the most part. And it mostly takes place in Neverwinter, if you know where Neverwinter is. And it's a group of adventurers who are kind of thieves and rogues, all that. And it's a heist movie, is what it is. And it's let me think here. There are some fun sequences in it. Let me bring the trailer up here because that'll help make it easier to explain. Lord Thoth says Greyhawk was better, so was Dragonlance and Dark Sun. Yeah, I'm a Greyhawk guy myself because that's what I really started out playing mostly. Um, and I never got to play much of Dark Sun. I was actually right around the time that was playing. Me and my friends were kind of moving away for D&D, and we were playing that Marvel role playing game more. If you remember that. But we did play some Dragonlance. I did enjoy Dragonlance, but Greyhawk was my main thing. But there is some fun stuff in it. Like, where is it here? Okay, so this sequence right here, where you see the character, you see her kind of go through this portal into another place. So there's a point where they want to, so they're after this treasure that's in a vault, and they've got this magic rod that can create portals to different places, but they can't create a portal into a place they can't see, so they can't portal into the vault. So they've got to figure out another way to do it. And what they try doing is they attach a portal. They can put a portal on like any object. So they put a portal onto a portrait, a painting, and then they want to slip the painting into this shipment of goods that are going to go into the vault. And the shipment of goods is in this carriage, this sort of wheelhouse and so they want to use the portals to slip into the wheelhouse while the thing's moving. And it's actually a pretty cool sequence, and I enjoyed it. And let's see what else. Let me kind of go through here. Yeah, so it starts out in Neverwinter. You see a shot of it there. Now, one thing, again, this is kind of like, I mean, this is the cleanest medieval city you will ever see. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no trash. There's no leaves. There's no animal dung in the streets. There's no dead animals in the streets. It looks spotless. It looks like a theme park. It looks like medieval theme park rather than a real medieval city. But I mean, whatever. And here you see there is a sequence where they go into the Underdark briefly. Lord Thaw says, "Yeah, even my D&D games, the cities are medieval." Yeah, I mean, I don't, it's D&D, so I don't necessarily expect them or require them to be realistic. But personally, I prefer my D&D a little more pulpy and a little more gritty. Like more along the lines of Conan. Like the Conan movies, some of those movies, in the '80s, like Beastmaster or something like that. And this is fine, but it's just a little too. It's like a cross of a Marvel movie and, like I said, a medieval fantasy, and then with a little like Harry Potter thrown in. And let's see what. Okay, yeah. So here, I think this is where they're cutting the. They're trying to. Okay, yeah. So they go down into the Underdark to get this magic helmet, which they are going to try and use to get into the vault. And like I say, there are some cool twists and turns in the movie that I didn't see coming involving that. This sequence here, this is actually a flashback because when they're going to get uh, the helmet was like lost after a battle like 100 years ago. So they have to go to this graveyard to question the dead bodies of some of the people who were in that war, because in D&D you can speak with the dead and stuff like that. Lord Thoth, wasn't the whole helmet thing in Clash of the Titans in the '80s? Yeah, there was a magic helmet in Clash of the Titans. Clash of the Titans is based heavily around the legend of Perseus. I mean, it's kind of an adaptation. It's not a straight version of that story. And in the legend of Perseus, he is given a helmet that makes him invisible. But that's not what this helmet does. It's a different type of helmet. It's also it's also a different helmet from Elmer Fudd's magic helmet. Remember he had my Spio and magic helmet in that opera cartoon. But they go to this graveyard to question some of these dead people, and this is a flashback with to this battle they were in, and it's got a black dragon. One of the fun things about the movie, again, is if you're a longtime D&D fan, is spotting the creatures. A black dragon. There are some intellect devourers at one point. We see a displacer beast, a mimic, a gelatinous cube. Most of them are in the trailer, to be honest, but there are a couple that aren't. And what else? Yeah, and actually, the whole sequence when they're in the graveyard is actually kind of funny, because the way the spell works that they can question the dead, you can only ask them 5 questions, and then the spell ends, and the corpse becomes inanimate again. It becomes dead again. And so the first one they go to, they basically screw it all up and waste all their questions before they even get to the question they want to ask. And the spell ends. So it's like, okay, now we have to dig up another grave. But they took it a little far. It's like they wind up digging up like 7 or 8 graves of people in order to get the information they want. But the first time they did it, it was pretty funny. And this kind of horn looking thing, this is like a kind of a what the bad guys are after in order to cast this spell. The villains, if you don't know, are the Red Wizards of Thay. I mean, if you know the Forgotten Realms, the Thay is kind of one of the evil nations. They're run by a bunch of like necromancers and stuff, and they're the villains, or the main villains anyway. There's a lot of landscape shots. It doesn't look as good as say Lord of the Rings, but some of it does look pretty good. Um, and is this the yeah, so there's this sequence early on where uh Edrin or whatever his name is, he's the Chris Pine's character, and then Holga, which is Michelle Rodriguez's character. So he's a bard. He's a bard, human bard, and she's a human barbarian. And they're going to be executed, and then they have this action sequence where she while she's, uh, you know, she basically fights like 6, 7, 8 guys, without any weapons and like beats the crap out of all of them. She's even, as you see here, she's like body slamming like grown dudes in armor. But again, in some movies I would be like, this would really bug me. But again, this is D&D and it's kind of what you make of it. And I feel like there's more wiggle room. So I don't mind that they made her, this super tough badass that can do that. I mean, that's okay. Even if it is a little, ridiculous. A lot of the action is very cartoony, I would add. It's almost some of the action, it's almost like the old Batman show. Then there's this, where is she again? Yeah, there. Doric, that's her name. She's a tiefling druid. Yeah, and there's this sequence where she becomes an owl bear. That's another creature I forgot to mention that's in it, and it's cool seeing an owl bear on scene. I do like seeing it. And there's the statue of a dragon here that gets animated. That's kind of one of the things they fight kind of in the climax of the film. This is one of the bad guys here. He's like an assassin who's working for the Red Wizards. Uh, okay, so here, the final action sequence kind of begins with uh, so in Neverwinter they have this thing. What were they called? It was like the Sunfire Games or something like that. But it's basically a kind of gladiator like tournament. They put a bunch of people in an arena with beasts, and they have to kind of fight for survival. And the floor of the arena is made up of all these kind of square columns that rise up and down, and they form a maze. But then every so often they'll shift, like some of them will drop and others will raise. So not only is it a maze, but the maze is constantly changing. And the whole action sequence again is pretty cool, I will say that. And then there's Hugh Grant as the villain. What's his character? His name is Forge Fitzroy, I think is his name, or something like that. Uh, and then here you see, this is the sequence with the mimic in that maze at the end. That's where most of the creatures are. You see him in this kind of maze action sequence. That's what's his face, Edrin, Chris Pine's character. That's his daughter. His of course his wife was like African American, of course. Um, and his character, so Edrin, he was a Harper. Like in the past, he was a part of the Harpers. If you're playing D&D, you know what the Harpers are. But he crossed some Red Wizards, and then they killed his wife. And so after that, he kind of quit the Harpers and became more kind of a rogue, kind of out for himself, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a redemption story for him. And then he gets busted on a heist and goes to jail. So he kind of abandons his daughter. And like I say, it's very much the bad dad trope is in effect, which I'm so sick of. But whatever. And then there's the Displacer Beast and gelatinous cube there at the end. And I don't know if it's in the trailer. I don't think it is. But in this final action sequence, so you've got our main characters, and they're in this maze. But there's two other groups of adventurers that are in this maze with them as well. And one of them are a bunch of characters, and they're obviously supposed to be the characters from the D&D cartoon in the 80s. That's what they look like. They look exactly like that. They're in it as well. And then there's a third group. And I'm not sure, but I think that other group, I think they're based off of if you play D&D third edition, they had those kind of archetype characters that they would use in all the D&D products, like in the player's handbook and DM guide and all the supplemental books. Like there was like the fighter was named Redgar or Regdar or whatever his name was, and there was a rogue halfling rogue named Lila and some others. I think it's supposed to be those characters. I'm not sure. You don't really see much of them, and none of them talk. They're there, but they never actually speak. The thing is, I was watching it and it was kind of like, yeah, I wish I had seen those movies instead of this movie. I would have preferred to see them. Yeah, they go into the Underdark. There is a sequence here with a red dragon. And I guess that'll be enough to talk about that for now. Like I say, I'll probably do a full review on it. But essentially, I've just got a very mixed feeling on it because I just, I wanted to, I, I want to like the movie, but they just make it so damn difficult with some of the crap they pull in Hollywood now. It's really, really aggravating. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the Disney stuff here because there's plenty to talk about. It's been a big week for Disney. As you may know, I already did a video earlier this week about that. So let me bring up this article. Of course, Disney's they started laying people off this week. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Disney layoffs hit TV production acquisitions departments. Okay, so layoffs have begun at Disney's television division. Sources tell the Hollywood Reporter that Monday's layoffs focused on production and acquisitions. Among the notable staffers let go on Monday are Jane Bieber, Senior VP Production at Freeform, Mark Lewinstein, Head of Production, Post Production at Hulu, Elizabeth Newman, Head of Disney's Acquisition Department. I already covered this article in my previous video, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Main thing I want to talk about is this other one, which focuses on Ike Perlmutter, because Disney has effectively, they didn't eliminate it, but they have shut down. What, that's not the right term, but they've actually absorbed Marvel Comics and Marvel Entertainment. So Marvel Comics was part of a smaller company or larger company, excuse me, called Marvel Entertainment, and it was owned by Disney, but it was a separate company. Well, now Disney has essentially absorbed it. So they are directly just a subsection of Disney. So now Marvel Comics is just a subsection of Marvel Entertainment, and Marvel Entertainment is a subsection of Disney. So Marvel Entertainment chairman Ike Perlmutter out at Disney. So Ike Perlmutter, he took ownership of Disney, or not him, but his company. So back in the 90s, he owned a toy company called, I think it was called Toy Biz, and they mainly did action figures. And when Disney declared bankruptcy back in, I think it was 98, Toy Biz bought them. Subsequently created Marvel Studios to create movies. And then, of course, Marvel Studios was sold to Disney back, I don't remember the exact year, but a while back. And they've essentially been a subsidiary of Disney. But Perlmutter, he played a big role in a lot of the early MCU stuff. In fact, depending on who you believe, he maybe has more credit for some of those early MCU films like Iron Man and Avengers and stuff like that than maybe Kevin Feige does. Then he eventually, see, I thought he'd already been sent away a while back because he got into trouble. So he's a friend of Trump. He's like a Trump supporter. So they went after him. And I think he got, was it, I don't know if it was a Me Too thing or something, but he got in some kind of trouble. And so he became kind of marginalized and was basically kind of pushed to the side. He was never very public anyway. But now they've actually fired him. So he is gone. And Marvel Entertainment is now part of Disney. So Marvel mogul Isaac Ike Perlmutter is out at Disney. The billionaire who sold the comic book giant Marvel to Disney in 2009 was told Wednesday that Disney is folding his Marvel Entertainment unit into other parts of the company and that he would be let go. Marvel Entertainment is focused mostly on consumer products and is not part of the lucrative Marvel Studios division led by Kevin Feige. Rob Steffens, the co-president of Marvel Entertainment, was also let go. Known for being reclusive and frugal, Perlmutter acquired Marvel in 1998 via a toy company he controlled. That would be Toy Biz. A little more than a decade later, he helped orchestrate the sale to Disney, which was led by Iger for $4 billion. Disney agreed to continue employing him as chairman of Marvel. Perlmutter, however, rubbed other senior Disney executives the wrong way because he was a Trump supporter. He initially had oversight of Marvel Studios, which developed films based on Marvel characters. A feud with Feige, however, hit a boiling point in 2015, with Iger moving Marvel Studios from Perlmutter's division and into Disney's larger film operations. Iger told CNBC in February that Perlmutter wanted to fire Feige. I promised Ike the job that he would continue. I promised Ike the job that he would continue to run Marvel after that, not forever necessarily. That's kind of oddly worded. And in 2015, he was intent on firing Kevin Feige, who was running Marvel Studio, and I thought that was a mistake and stepped in to prevent that from happening. Iger's interview came as Perlmutter, who was revealed to be involved in Nelson Peltz's proxy fight against Disney. Our filings indicate that both Ike and Nelson were working together to try to encourage the board to convince the board to put Nelson on the board, Iger told CNBC. Indeed, according to Disney's calendar of events, Perlmutter was the first person to reach out to then CEO Bob Chapek to discuss a meeting with Peltz. Mr. Perlmutter said he and Mr. Peltz supported Mr. Chapek and that adding Mr. Peltz to the board would help Chapek counter recent headwinds he had faced, solidify his position as CEO, and preempt any other potential shareholder nominations of director nominees at the 2023 annual meeting. Disney wrote in its preliminary proxy filing January 17th. He said without Mr. Peltz there, former executives, including Mr. Iger, would be back at Disney. Iger, of course, replaced Chapek as CEO in November, not long after the meeting cited by Disney took place. Peltzer dropped his proxy fight in February after Iger reported strong quarterly earnings for the company and announced his turnaround plans. While the decision to effectively fold Marvel Entertainment on Wednesday is a part of Disney's larger layoff push, it's hard not to see the broader context around Perlmutter's more than 13-year run at the company. A longtime friend of former President Donald Trump, Perlmutter was also said to have served as an informal advisor to Trump's Veteran Affairs Department. So, yeah, he and this guy Peltz, they tried to pull a bit of a power play on the board, and it didn't work. So, when that failed, I think Perlmutter's days were numbered at Disney. So let me see what else on the Disney docket here. Okay, so Jonathan Majors. So let's talk about that. Let me bring that up. Of course, I'm sure you've all heard. Jonathan Majors is in a bit of a sticky wicket, but he and his lawyer insist, that he is innocent. Now we have this story from Bounding into Comics. Marvel star Jonathan Majors releases text messages related to alleged domestic dispute. Supposed victim appears to declare they do not have my blessing on any charges being placed. In the latest development regarding Jonathan Majors' alleged domestic dispute, the Marvel star has released a trio of text messages that he believes helped prove his innocence. Shared with entertainment news outlet The Wrap on March 30th, courtesy of Major's attorney Priya Chowdhury. The text in question see the supposed victim attempting to reassure the Loki and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania actor that she did not believe him to be guilty of any wrongdoing. Lord Thoth, guilty until proven guilty. Well, yeah, as we've seen in recent years, that the law works differently for different people in different situations. You know, if you know the right people and you have the right backing, then you can pretty much just do whatever you want and skate on the law. But that's a whole other discussion. All right, sit between 6 p.m. and 9:30 local time in New York City. The alleged exchange opens with the victim asking, "Please let me know you're okay when you get this." They assured me that you won't be charged, she supposedly continues. They said they had to arrest you as protocol when they saw the injuries on me and they knew we had a fight. So I'm so angry that they did, and I'm sorry you're in this position. We'll make sure nothing happens about this. I told them it was my fault for trying to grab your phone. I only just got out of hospital. Just call me when you're out. I love you, she adds, before going on to inform Majors that they just called again to check on me, and I reiterated how this was not an attack and they do not have my blessing on any charges being placed. I read the paper they gave me about strangulation, and I said point blank, this did not occur and should be removed immediately, the victim writes. The judge is definitely going to be told this. She ensured this to me. I know you have the best team and there's nothing to worry about. I just want you to know that I'm doing all I can on my end. I also said to tell the judge to know that the origin of the call was to do with me collapsing and passing out and your worry as my partner due to our communication prior. Out of care, she promised all will be relayed. Despite their release as of this writing, the authenticity of these texts has yet to be verified. Interestingly, these texts were not mentioned in Chowdhury's previous declaration that she and Majors were in possession of multiple pieces of evidence that would exonerate her clients. We are quickly gathering and presenting evidence to the district attorney with the expectation that all charges will be dropped imminently, said Chowdhury on March 26th, following Majors' arrest. This evidence includes video footage from the vehicle where this episode took place, witness testimony from the driver and others who both saw and heard the episode, and most importantly, two written statements from the woman recanting these allegations. All the evidence proves that Mr. Majors is entirely innocent and did not assault her whatsoever, the attorney continued. Unfortunately, this incident came about because this woman was having an emotional crisis for which she was taken to a hospital yesterday. The NYPD is required to make an arrest in these situations, and this is the only reason that Mr. Majors was arrested. We expect these charges to be dropped soon. According to police reports, the supposed altercation took place on March 25th, and shortly after it was said to have occurred. Police responded to a 911 call inside of an apartment located in the vicinity of West 22nd Street and 8th, within the confines of the 10th precinct. A preliminary investigation determined that a 33-year-old male was involved in a domestic dispute with a 30-year-old female. The victim informed police she was assaulted. Officers placed the 33-year-old male into custody without incident. The victim sustained minor injuries to her head and neck and was removed to an area hospital in stable condition. The Manhattan District Attorney Office has since charged Majors with 3 counts of assault in the third degree, aggravated harassment in second degree, 3 counts of attempted assault in the third degree, and harassment in the second degree in relation to the supposed incident. The documents also reveal that Majors, as of yet unidentified female victim, uh, wait, hold on. Okay, yeah, she claimed to officers responding to the relevant 911 call that not only had the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania star uh, lead physically hit her about the face and with an open hand, causing substantial pain and a laceration behind the ear, but also grabbed her hand and neck so hard that it caused bruising and substantial pain. As of this writing, Major's next court appearance in his domestic dispute case is currently set for May 8th. So, I mean, I think in the end this will be much ado about nothing. I'll be very surprised if this goes anywhere. He's probably going to be cleared. There have been some rumors swirling that maybe he would get recast. And I mean, if it went bad for him, then perhaps that would have happened. But like I say, I don't think that's likely to happen. I think he's probably going to walk away from this just fine. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay, so let's talk about The Mandalorian a little bit. Let me bring. So apparently, the Mandalorian not doing well as far as viewership numbers are concerned. And again, this is on Bounding into Comics. Mandalorian season 3 premiere viewership numbers crater. So Nielsen released their weekly viewership numbers, and they show the Mandalorian season 3 premiere viewership numbers significantly declined from the season 2 premiere. Nielsen revealed during the week of the Mandalorian season 3 premiere, February 27th through March 5th, the show was only viewed 823 million minutes. That was only good for fifth on the weekly charts behind Outer Banks, Murdaugh Murders, The Last of Us, and NCIS. And you see the top 10 here. Yeah, Mandalorian is fifth. It's the only Disney show. Oh, well, no, there's Bluey. I forgot Bluey. Yeah. Apparently that does really well for him, that Bluey show. The show did place third on Nielsen's original streaming chart behind Outer Banks, which drew in 2.21 billion minutes, and Murdaugh Murders, a Southern Scandal, which garnered over 1.08 billion minutes. I haven't seen those shows, so I have no idea what they're about, by the way. Last of Us is classified as an acquired property by Nielsen, given it airs on HBO and is then streamed on HBO Max. NCIS is also an acquired property, given the show originally airs on CBS and has since been licensed to Netflix and Paramount Plus. Total minutes viewed for The Mandalorian season 3 declined by 207 million minutes. Nielsen previously reported that when the season 2 premiere released on Disney Plus, the show drew in 1.030 billion minutes. While doing a straight comparison between the runtime, it actually looks like The Mandalorian might have increased its number of viewers by over 3 million people. The season 2 premiere of The Mandalorian Chapter 9, The Marshal, had a runtime of 56 minutes. Thus, if you divide 1.03 billion minutes by 56, you get around 18.4 million viewers. Mandalorian Chapter 17, The Apostate, the season 3 premiere, has a runtime of 38 minutes. Dividing 823 by 38, you get 21.65 million viewers. However, as YouTuber Valiant Renegade points out, Nielsen's minutes watched reporting does not just look at single episodes, but looks at the show in its entirety. He explains there's a tremendous amount of binge watching that comes into play leading into the premiere. That means a rather significant amount of those 823 million watch minutes accumulated by Nielsen during that week for the Disney Plus show were probably made rewatching seasons 1 and largely season 2 to refresh after a 2-year and 4-month hiatus for the previous season. On top of noting that binge watching factors into Nielsen's numbers, he also notes that section 2 or season 2 of The Mandalorian premiered on a Friday rather than the current season debuting on Wednesday. Valiant Renegade explains if The Mandalorian season 2 premiered on a Friday, that means it had a full 48 hours less than the season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian just a few weeks ago. Well, that makes the Nielsen numbers even worse. Later in the video, he also points out that the part of all, when The Mandalorian Season 2 debuted in October 2020, there were over 10 million fewer subscribers to Disney Plus in North America. Walt Disney Company ended its fourth quarter of fiscal 2020 on October 3rd, 2020. In their earnings report, they reported they had a total of 73.7 million subscribers to Disney Plus. If their most recent quarterly report for the first quarter of fiscal year 2023, the Walt Disney Company reported they had a total of 161.8 million subscribers. However, in this new report, they indicated that they only have 46.6 million subscribers in the United States and Canada, and another 57.7 million internationally, for a total of 104 million Disney Plus core subscribers. On top of these core subscribers, they have another 57.5 million Disney Plus Hotstar subscribers. Interestingly, the report indicated that the domestic subscriber domestic subscribers declined by 200,000 subscribers compared to the previous quarter. Valiant Renegade went on to opine, no matter how you want to slice this, this is terrible for Walt Disney. This is terrible for Lucasfilm, and this is terrible for Star Wars and The Mandalorian. This is an audience that has shrunk precipitously since its second season. The Nielsen report follows in the wake of a previous report from Samba TV that indicated viewership numbers for the Mandalorian season 3 premiere in the United States were less than the premieres of Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett. On top of these report, IMDb user reviews were significantly down for the season 3 premiere compared to the season 2 premiere. Yeah, so it looks like interest in the show has really kind of dropped, and I don't have Disney Plus, so I haven't watched the show. I did watch the first 2 seasons. I had a friend who was letting me watch them on his, Disney Plus. But I just didn't even care anymore. I don't care about Baby Yoda anymore. I'm sick of Baby Yoda. I just find it annoying now. And like I say, I haven't watched the show, but I have watched some clips of it on YouTube. And from what I've seen, I mean, it's gotten really freaking stupid. And as an example of that, and this next article I'm going to pull up, I mean, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of the nonsense I've seen in these clips I've watched, because it's like seriously like moronic stuff. But anyway, so Mandalorian season 3, episode 5, The Pirate, continues to insult the intelligence of viewers as Bo Katan removes her helmet at the order of the armorer. So, of course, if you've watched The Mandalorian, he's part of this sort of subset of Mandalorians who are like religious fanatics, basically. And a big part of this sort of belief system they follow is that they never take their freaking helmets off, ever, in front of other people. They can take them off when they're alone, but they can't take it off when they're in front of other people, not even to eat, or stuff like that. Um, I mean, and how that works, I don't know. It's so extreme. It's so ridiculous. I could understand like never take your helmet off in front of an enemy, or something like that. But just never ever, unless you're alone. It's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, uh, the latest episode of The Mandalorian, The Pirate, continued the show's now seemingly tradition of insulting its audience as the episode ended with Bo-Katan removing her helmet and violating one of the main tenets of the way. Because, they always say, this is the way. This is the way. After an action-packed, albeit strategically stupid fight against the pirates led by Gorian Shard that saw the Mandalorians liberate the capital city of Navarro and thus the planet from Shard's forces, Bo-Katan is summoned to a meeting with the armor. And so the armor, she's this female Mandalorian who is she's kind of like a combination of a blacksmith and a priest, sort of. She's the closest thing they have to a leader. During this meeting, the armor instructs Bo-Katan to remove her helmet. When she questions the decision, given it seems to be one of the paramount disciplines of the way, so much so that Din Djarin had to complete a religious penance by bathing in the living waters of Mandalore, or otherwise live as an apostate and outcast from the children of the Watch, the armorer replies, "Do you respect my station?" As Bo-Katan responds, "I do." She then proceeds to remove her helmet at the command of the armorer. Yeah, so the opening of the season, a part of it is that, he took off his helmet before Baby Yoda left at the end of the second season. And he took it off in front of, Luke was there, of course, and Cara Dune was there, and there were some other people. And so because of that, he had to do this whole thing of go to Mandalore and bathe in these waters to purify himself because he'd taken his helmet off. And now here is this armor, and she's the one who told him, you got to do that. You took off your helmet, you've betrayed our tenets, you defile yourself, you got to be purified. Hold on, let me take a drink of water here, just a moment. Okay. And now here she is telling Bo Katan, oh, just take your helmet off. It's fine, whatever. The show then justifies the decision to have Bo Katan remove her helmet, with the armorer explaining, "Our people have strayed from the way, and it is not enough for a few to walk it. We must walk it together." The armorer adds, "We must walk the way together, all Mandalorians." He goes on to add, "I was taught that the mythosaur existed only in legend, and yet you saw it. It is a sign that the next stage is upon us. Mandalore must all come together. You have walked both worlds. You are the one who can unite us." So basically, what they're going to do is they're going to make Bo Katan the main star of The Mandalorian, I think is what that boils down to. Lord Thaw says, "Worst episode of Mandalorian so far. It was terrible writing." Yeah, it seems like it is. And like I say, I haven't watched a full episode, but I've watched some clips, and everything I'm seeing, it's like, wow, this is like utter garbage. This is awful. And it's not like The Mandalorian was a great show to begin with. It was okay. It was passable. So after Bo Katan walks to her ship without her helmet on, the armorer further explains Bo Katan Kryze is going off to bring other Mandalorians in exile to us so that we may join together once again. When questioned about the removal of her helmet, the armorer replies, "Bo Katan walks both worlds, and she can bring all tribes together. It is time to retake Mandalore." Now, you might be wondering why this is insulting if it wasn't already obvious to you. Well, if you recall earlier in the season, it's shown that Bo Katan doesn't actually walk in both worlds. In fact, the show Jake Skywalkered her in the first episode and depicted her as a moping around in her castle. But more importantly, all the Mandalorians that had supported her previously have abandoned her. She told Din Djarin, "There's nothing left to join. When I returned without the dark saber, my forces melted away." When asked where the fleet she had captured was taken, she replied, "Making their way through the galaxy as mercenaries." Bo-Katan then instructed Djarin to lead the Mandalorians with the dark saber. Dark saber, wave that thing around; they'll do whatever you say. And here she is looking very kind of Khaleesi like. It kind of reminds me of that throne that the throne at Dragonstone that what's her name? Oh, good lord, Daenerys. That she had towards the end. While this is clearly insulting by contradicting what just happened 4 episodes ago, this is par for the course for the show. In the second episode of the show, Din Djarin immediately eschews the beliefs of the Way, or at least the Mandalorians, in order to negotiate with a group of Jawas that stole parts from his ship. Yeah, I remember that whole thing. But yeah, I mean, it's just another example of how on these shows today they don't even keep their own rules straight. They don't even keep their own canon straight. It reminds me a lot of Discovery, to be honest. Discovery did crap like that all the time, where they would establish something and then a few episodes later just do something like completely contradicting it, and you'd be like, "What?" As J.R.R. Tolkien noted in his On Fairy Stories essay, what really happens is that the story maker proves a successful sub creator. He makes a secondary world which your mind can enter. Inside it, what he relates is true. It accords with the laws of that world. You therefore believe it while you are, as it were, inside. However, he adds, the moment disbelief arises, the spell is broken, the magic, or rather art, has failed. You are then out in the primary world, again looking at the little abortive secondary world from outside. If you are obliged by kindliness or circumstance to stay, then disbelief must be suspended or stifled, otherwise, listening and looking would become intolerable. But this suspension of disbelief is a substitute for the genuine thing, a subterfuge we use when condescending to games of make believe, or when trying more or less willingly to find what virtue we can in the work of an art that has failed for us. Yeah, so I'm probably going to do a video on it because I want to talk about it because this is just the tip of the iceberg of the nonsense that I've seen in The Mandalorian in this third season. And I'm not surprised that it's not doing well. I suspect, I mean, I don't know this, so I don't have any numbers I can point to. But of course, when they did the sequel trilogy, it really pissed off a lot of fans. I think the people they pissed off were primarily OT fans. People who experienced the original trilogy as when they were young, like I did. And that's who they really alienated. But more recent fans, they hadn't pissed off yet. But I think that with that Kenobi show, which was so friggin' bad, I think they really alienated a lot of the prequel trilogy fans, sort of the next generation of fans after that. And I think that's, so now they've lost a lot of OT and prequel trilogy fans. And I think that's part of why these numbers are down. And the whole bait and switch thing with Baby Yoda leaving and going off with Luke, it turned out to be a lot of nothing. It went nowhere. That really ticked me off. And from what I've seen, some of the stuff I've seen, so apparently they're actually training Grogu to be a freaking Mandalorian. I mean, I'm sorry, that is the dumbest shit ever. I mean, they've got him with like one of those little bitty dart launchers on his hand. I'm like, are you kidding me? He's a freaking infant. This is stupid. And he's never going to be more than about 2 feet tall. He's going to look ridiculous when they put him in one of these little bitty suits of Mandalorian armor, which I guarantee you they are going to do. I guarantee you they're going to do that because they figure Grogu and Mandalorian armor will be like a hot merchandising item. Grogu Mandalorian Funko Pops. They can't wait to do those. So that is going to happen. I will guarantee you it will. All right. What else have we got here? I think that's all the Disney stuff. Oh, okay. So, yeah, there's this other thing. So, let me bring this article up. So if you, I don't know if you've heard, but Disney has made some moves to block this takeover of the Reedy Creek district by the state of Florida. Where okay, well I had that darn website. This is yeah, here it is, CNBC. And this is I got to admit, this is a pretty wild story. Okay, here we go. Disney blocks Ron DeSantis's Florida power play with a royal family clause. So key points: public feud between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and the Walt Disney Corporation rages on after Disney invoked a rare legal clause based on the descendants of the British royal family before DeSantis could replace the Reedy Creek Improvement District Board of Supervisors. That Disney allied panel signed a long lasting development agreement that drastically limits his control. Florida legislatures have balked at the new agreement, vowing to find a legal way to repeal or void the document. However, Disney says all of its conduct was legal. Now, start this by saying, hey, I'm no lawyer. So, as far as how legit this is and how, is this something that will actually work? I have no idea. Okay, so forget about Disney princesses. Mickey Mouse might have just proved who's the real king of Florida. The Walt Disney Company used a legal clause that name checks King Charles III to apparently thwart Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' attempt to strip the company of its self-governance power in the state. And so, to kind of set it up, I'm assuming most of you know, but if you don't, so there's this area around where Disneyland is called the Reedy Creek Improvement District, and it's basically a bunch of land that Disney owns. And this special agreement that Disney had with the state basically allowed them to run this area virtually autonomously. They didn't really pay any taxes. They didn't need to go through the usual state channels in order to, like, for construction, like if they wanted to build a road or they wanted to build a new attraction at Disneyland. They didn't have to go and get any of the usual permits. They don't have to obey the environmental laws that everyone else has to follow, all these special privileges. And then last year, the Florida legislature passed a bill to strip them of this power. DeSantis signed it back around, I think, the beginning of the year. And key to this was this Reedy Creek board, who are a bunch of, Disney's puppets. They basically do whatever Disney wants. And part of this bill, is that it was going to replace them with people appointed. I don't know if it's appointed by DeSantis himself or not, but by the government of Florida. But now apparently they pulled some kind of legal shenanigans to stop that from happening. So for nearly a year, state legislatures encouraged by DeSantis, have sought to exert more control over the company's Florida-based theme parks by passing a bill that would dissolve Disney's special tax district. DeSantis also wanted to rename the area the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District and plant a new board of supervisors to oversee it. Until recently, there had been no major public discussion about dissolving Disney's long established special district, which it's occupied for 55 years, leading DeSantis' critics to question its timing and the speed at which the governor acted against the company. Because poor Disney, the poor billion-dollar corporation, who will speak for them? Who will speak for the billion-dollar corporation? I mean, it's a shame they have no friends to defend them. Widely seen as a contender for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, DeSantis became locked in a bitter and public feud with the entertainment giant over the company's denouncement of Florida's HB 1557 law early last year. HB 1557, dubbed by critics as the Don't Say Gay bill, limits early education teaching on sexual orientation or gender identity. Republican Man, I can't talk today. Republican State Rep Randy Fine told CNBC's Squawk Box that last April, that bill wasn't retaliatory, but then said, when Disney kicked the hornet's nest, we looked at special districts. Meaning, yeah, it wasn't retaliatory, but it was retaliatory. when While Disney remained quiet on the matter for months, it seems the House of Mouse has been hatching a plan to retain its control over the land within the outer limits of Orange and Osceola counties. On February 8th, the day before the Florida House voted to put DeSantis in charge, the previous Disney Allied board signed a long lasting development agreement that drastically limits the control that can be exercised over the company and its district. As part of a 30-year development agreement, Disney no longer needs board approval to build high density projects or buildings of any height and can sell or assign developmental rights. It also bans the board from using Disney's name or any of its characters. The agreement includes a royal clause that dates back to 1692 in Britain and would extend its term limit for decades. This declaration shall continue in effect until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles II, King of England, living of the state of this declaration, the document said. This kind of clause is most often used in the UK, typically when it comes to trusts and providing a buffer against perpetuities. So long as one of those grandchildren makes it 80, this clause would be there for 100 years, explained Robert Lord, senior advisor on tax policy at progressive group Patriotic Millionaires. DeSantis replaced all of the Disney Allied board members with 5 Republicans on February 27th. So I guess he does personally appoint them, I guess. I don't That's how they make it sound. It was only then that Disney's new binding agreement was discovered. The clause was so obscure that several journalists who attended the February 8th meeting apparently didn't pick up on it. This essentially makes Disney the government. Ron Perry, one of the new board members appointed for the district by DeSantis, said at the February 27th meeting. This board loses, for practical purposes, the majority of its ability to do anything beyond maintain roads and maintain basic infrastructure. Representatives for DeSantis did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment. Florida's Attorney General requested communications records regarding the February 8th meeting, according to a tweet from a Washington Post reporter. Florida legislators have balked at the new agreement, vowing to find a legal way to repeal or void the document. However, Disney says all of its conduct was legal. All agreements signed between Disney and the district were appropriate and were discussed and approved in open notice public forums in compliance with Florida's government in the Sunshine Law, the Walt Disney World Resort said in a statement. The district in question is the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which was established in 1967. It was created by the Florida legislature so Disney could develop the infrastructure for Walt Disney World at no cost to Florida taxpayers. The arrangement has allowed Disney to build theme parks, hotels, and other experiences within the Reedy Creek district with little to no oversight. The company also became the largest employer of Florida residents and helped the Orlando area become one of the largest hubs for tourism in the U.S. At Disney, allies came to the February 8th meeting prepared to defend its special status in the state. According to the minutes, board president Larry Hames asked if there was any other business to discuss before closing the meeting. John Class, who's been Reedy Creek's top administrator since 2016, then quoted famed basketball coach John Wooden. Things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. And then there's a correction. Before DeSantis could replace the Reedy Creek Improvement District Board of Supervisors, that Disney allied panel signed a long lasting development agreement that drastically limits his control. An earlier version misstated the title of the board. So, like I say, I'm not a legal expert, so I have no idea how legit this is and if this is something that can actually work. Now, I don't know if any of you know of WDW Pro. So he's a YouTuber. And he covers a lot of Disney stuff. And he had a website for quite some time before that, also that covered a lot of Disney news. And he seems to be pretty plugged in and to know what's going on there. And he talked about this on his channel. I actually watched that video a little while before doing this live stream. And his opinion is that this is probably a delaying tactic. And I'm sorry, let me take a drink of water again here, right quick. Okay. And so he thinks this is probably a delaying tactic on the part of Disney. What they'll do is they'll take this into the courts, and then Disney will try to just, that they probably know that this isn't going to work in the long run, and this will eventually get overturned or get reversed. But they're going to try and take this into the court and then just try and slow the process down and delay the process as much as they can in the hopes that they can keep this thing up in the air until presumably DeSantis gets voted out and they get another governor. Now, obviously, in order for this to work out for Disney, a few things need to happen. First of all, if DeSantis leaves, they probably need a Democrat to replace him because another Republican is probably just going to continue the policy that DeSantis has in place. Because, a Republican legislature voted for this. And on top, that's another thing. So even if they could get a Democrat governor, the state legislature, which I think is pretty heavily Republican right now, would have to then swing probably to Democrat. I don't know. I guess a Republican governor, could he veto it now that the previous governor has already signed it though? I don't know. I'm not sure how that would work because DeSantis has already signed it into law. So it's too late for, I think, for another governor to come in and veto it. So they would need probably a Democrat legislature to get into power and then reverse it. Basically draft new legislation that reverses the whole thing. So they'd need to get a Democrat legislature in place as well. I mean, a lot has got to go right for this to work. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting story. It's pretty clever of Disney. I got to give them that. They're devious, if nothing else. Okay, yeah, so that's all the Disney stuff. Now there was a few DCU things to touch on. Let me move on to those. Okay. and this is on comingsoon.net. James Gunn debunks more Superman DCU casting rumors. So, James Gunn, the Suicide Squad director and co CEO of DC Studios, has dispelled more Superman legacy casting rumors. Responding to a rumor that the role of Clark Kent is close to being cast, Gunn once again stated that DC Studios has not spoken with any actors about the role and that he's only made private lists and is prepping material for auditions. This lines up with comments Gunn made last week about how far along the casting for the movie is. And then you see his tweet here where he says, no, that's not true. I haven't talked with any actors. I know that Grace Randolph is really pushing this. Apparently, she's basically saying that the new Superman is going to be, I think his name is Logan Lerman, and pretty much is saying that he's been cast as the new Superman already. I mean, who knows? I don't necessarily believe her, but I don't think you can necessarily trust what James Gunn says either. Of course, he famously came out like a couple of weeks ago and said, "Oh yeah, we've talked with Ben Affleck, and he's like all eager to work with us and do a DCU film. So that's probably going to happen." And then a couple of days later, Affleck basically said, "Like, no way am I doing that. I have zero interest in that." So who knows? The person who initially reported the rumor, Grace Randolph, followed up by saying that since Gunn debunked the rumor, she would reveal that the top choice for the role she had heard about was Hunter star Logan Lerman. Gunn denied the claim, simply stating, "For the record, I don't know who that is." Some Twitter users interpreted Gunn's response as a slight toward the actor, leading the director to clarify that it wasn't, and there aren't many actors' names he doesn't know. Gunn then said that now that he's been told who Lerman is, he does recognize the actor and thinks he is talented, but reiterates that Lerman has never been involved in the casting of Superman in Superman Legacy. Superman Legacy tells a story, blah, blah. Okay, they talk about the movie, so I won't rehash that stuff. But so again, I don't know what to make of it. As I say, I mean, Grace Randolph's been wrong before, but then James Gunn has said some not exactly true things before, so who knows? For what it's worth, I'm not really familiar with Logan Lerman either. I probably should have gotten a picture of him and seen what he looks like. I don't know. So I don't know if he is a good choice for this or not. Why don't I let me look him up right quick. Let's see what this guy looks like. Logan Lerman, actor. Uh, okay. Eh, I mean, physically, I don't know how tall is he? Do we know how tall he is? Because Superman needs to be a fairly big guy. Holy crap! Are you kidding? So IMDb. So IMDb has him at like 5'7". Are you kidding? And there's another one that says he's 5'8" and a half. No, 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 no. That's way too small of a guy to be playing Superman. And I'd say if he is part of it, like, okay, so if I haven't mentioned before, I've got a theory on Superman. I think they are going to make Superman a total wuss. What they're going to do, of course, a lot of people, the problem with they had with Cavill's Super, of course, is that Cavill kills people and he doesn't do enough to like stop innocent people getting killed and stuff like that, and that it's the sort of dark version of Superman. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to course correct way too much. They're going to go way in the other direction and they're going to make Superman a total P word and make him a total wuss and make him basically soy based and a total wimp. And I'm gonna predict right now, of course, they're doing Superman, then after that, they're doing this Supergirl movie. And the Supergirl movie, apparently, she's gonna be a much darker and violent character. And I guarantee you, after that Supergirl movie, they're gonna do a movie, and I don't know if it'll be a Superman sequel or Supergirl sequel, where Supergirl and Superman meet. And because of their different views, they're going to wind up clashing. They're going to having a disagreement, and they're going to wind up fighting. And I guarantee you right now, Supergirl is going to beat the shit out of him. She is going to kick the shit out of him. Now, she won't win the fight. They won't have them fight to an actual conclusion. Something like something will happen that'll interrupt the fight and then they won't finish it. But before the fight's over, it's going to be clear that she's winning, and they're going to make it clear that she's tougher and stronger than he is. And if he ever faces the authority, they're doing that authority movie. If they ever have a movie where he fights the authority, they'll do the same thing there. They will kick the shit out of him. I promise you. So yeah, if that's the guy, no, that is a bad choice. Okay, what else have I got here? Okay, so we got a story here with Momoa. Let's bring that up. Okay, so again, this is on Bounding into Comics. Following Shazam: Fear of the Gods box office disaster, Jason Momoa attempts to stave off similar disaster for Aquaman 2. Jason Momoa might be trying to do some damage control for his next Aquaman movie, which could be his last as the character. He might find new life as the main man in the DCU, but Momoa engaged in a ploy similar to the hand wringing we witnessed by the cast and director leading up to the release of Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Via Games Radar, he tells Total Film he hopes people will go see Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, despite Shazam 2 crashing and burning, bad test screenings of the former, and time running out for the DCEU. Of course, Momoa didn't bring up those inconveniences and instead sold the sequel's fun factor. It's fun. I really enjoy doing comedy, he said. Rumors and leaks suggest most of the comedy comes from himself and Patrick Wilson, who returns as Orm to team up with his brother and rival. Momoa confirms all this, saying, "There's some really fun stuff with Patrick Wilson. I really adore him. We had a great time working together. It's like we're brothers. There's a lot of cool stuff happening in this one." In the interview, Momoa Lorthaw says, "You're going to skip Aquaman?" Okay, I will wind up seeing it. I will see it. I'm in the tank for Aquaman. What can I say? In the interview, Momoa comes across as confident that Aquaman will play a role in the future of the DCU and that his new boss, Peter Safran, won't let him down. "Peter's my producer and is a dear friend," he said. "I absolutely think Aquaman will be involved in the DCU. It's on, bro. There's no one bigger than Aquaman." Actually, there are people bigger than Aquaman, but whatever. That may have been the case in 2018 when the first film was an unexpected hit, but early feedback is painting a different picture for the sequel. The Lost Kingdom isn't even out until December, and there's copious social media chatter that the film is boring and terrible, coupled with reports of walkouts at test screenings. We also keep hearing Amber Heard's part is intact. If the film flops, and it looks like it will, Arthur Curry could be kept on the sidelines to await a reboot while Momoa gets to play Lobo when he's brought back into the fold after a respite. Or so goes the rumored plans, despite what Momoa has said about playing more than one character at a time. Yeah, I'll be very surprised if Aquaman continues. I'm pretty sure this will be the last one. Even if it does well, which, I mean, let's face it, it probably won't. Between it being kind of a dead letter on arrival and the whole Amber Heard thing and all the rumors about it being awful, it will probably fail. Um, Personally, I just hope it's good. I enjoyed Shazam. I enjoyed the Shazam 2 movie. Hopefully, I will enjoy this one too. I really enjoyed the first Aquaman. I know it's not like it's not The Godfather or anything. It's a kind of a silly movie in some ways, but I quite liked it. All right, and now here's an interesting one. This is another DC related story. Let me bring this up. Okay, James Gunn fuels speculation about DC's Fantastic Four analog, The Terrifics. So James Gunn apparently tweeted an image. Let's see, is it in here? Okay, well, I don't maybe they don't have it. There it is. Okay. He tweeted this image that has the Terrifics kind of front and center. And can I bring that up? Give me a second here. Okay, let me bring that up. Give me just a second. Okay, there we go. All right, here we are. Can I increase this? There we go. And this art is by Jim Mora, it looks like, and he's one of the best artists at DC right now. And so these are the Terrifics here in the foreground. And the Terrifics came about, back when was this? I think this was around like 2017 or so. DC did this initiative, this sort of push called the New Age of Heroes, I think it was called. And they had several new books come out. And there were a couple of different books in this that were honestly were kind of obvious takeoffs on Marvel books. There was one called Damage that was an obvious kind of Hulk character. And then they had a book called The Terrifics, which was an obvious takeoff on the Fantastic Four. And it was really the Terrifics was the most successful of the bunch. Most of those books didn't even make it a year. The Terrifics actually wound up running about, I think, 3.5 years, something like that. A decent-ish run, not great, but not embarrassing. Now, of course, the obvious thing to take from this is that the Terrifics are going to be coming to the DCU and be a part of it, maybe in a film or maybe a show, who knows. And of course, in this article speculates that this is going to be that they may try to beat Marvel to the punch and try and get this out before Marvel can bring back the Fantastic Four, which I doubt that, but who knows. So let me read the article here. So brought together by writer Jeff Lemire and artist Stephen Reese or Yvonne Reese, excuse me. Let me bring this back up. The Terrifics debuted in the Terrifics #1 in April 2018. Okay, so it was 2018. Born from Simon Stagg's plot to open a portal to the dark multiverse by converting the shape-shifting Metamorpho into Nth Metal. In his attempt to stop Stagg, Mr. Terrific recruits Plastic Man because of his immunity to the dark multiverse. Plastic Man's immune to the dark multiverse. I didn't know. Who knew? Along with Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, and Plastic Man, they are sucked through Stag's portal and into the dark multiverse, where the trio meets Phantom Girl on an otherwise lifeless planet. After traveling back, the team finds themselves bound together by the dark multiverse's energy, unable to go their separate ways. This is not the first time Gunn has teased the introduction of the Terrifics in the DCU. In November, he posted artwork of the team's leader, Mr. Terrific. In the comics, Holt is known as the third smartest person in the DC pantheon behind Lex Luthor and Batman. In addition to the Terrifics, Holt has been tied to the Justice Society and checkmates Amanda Waller. The latter's upcoming solo series could open the door for Holt's on screen introduction. Gunn also recently revealed that he once pitched a Plastic Man movie starring Matthew Lillard to Warner Brothers. In 2000, Lillard and Gunn would later collaborate on 2002's Scooby Doo and its 2004 sequel, both of which Gunn wrote. The revelation came after Lillard expressed a desire to reunite with Gunn on a future project. Warner Brothers tried to make a Plastic Man film on two other occasions. In 1995, the Wachowskis wrote a script for a live action Plastic Man movie that was said to have Keanu Reeves attached in the role, though Reeves later dispelled those rumors. In 2018, another Plastic Man script entered development with from Amanda Idoko, whoever that is In 2020, Warner Brothers recruited writer Kat Vasco to revamp the project with a female lead, of course, but development has since gone silent. In 2021, Parks and Recreation's Ben Schwartz expressed his desire to headline a Plastic Man film. I had a pitch, I had an idea for that movie, he said in an interview. We didn't end up writing it, but I would still love to play Plastic Man. In November 2022, Schwartz reiterated his desire to nab the Plastic Man role by responding to one of Gunn's tweets with a picture of the eccentric DC character and the caption, F yes. I know for a while I thought that back in the 90s that what's his name? Jim Carrey would be a really good Plastic Man. So, I mean, is there, could this happen? I mean, he certainly seems to be implying it. The thing with this Terrifics though is they all have different origins. Unlike the Fantastic Four, who have a common origin where they all got their powers in the same incident, these four characters all have differing origins. That they have their powers independently of each other. So to do a movie, it would be kind of unwieldy. I mean, I guess you could do it and make it work, but I think it might work better as a streaming show because you could maybe introduce them one at a time and kind of give more backstory, unlike a film where you really just have to hit the ground running and get to the plot. But I would be up for this. I like the Terrifics and I like these characters for the most part. So I hope they do this. I hope it will happen, but we'll see. And then what else we got? So we got another DC related story. I think this is the last DC story. So let me just hit this right quick. Okay. The CW soap opera Gotham Knights circling cancellation. Ratings dropped 200K after first episode. The Arrowverse is dead, and everyone has next to no reason to check in on anything related to DC on TV. Moreover, as a nexus for that division of the company, the CW is a black hole after changing ownership at a cost of nothing except debt. Between these two dismal realities, Gotham Knights was doomed from the start. And Gotham Knights, I haven't watched it, so I don't really know what it's about, but my understanding is that it's basically another one of these Batman shows that doesn't have Batman in it. Like Batwoman and Naomi before it, things aren't looking good for the new series, and the ratings just aren't there. It's already circling the drain after only 2 episodes, which experienced a substantial dip from week to week. According to TV series finale, episode 2 of Gotham Knights was watched by 0.428 million viewers. That is down from the previous week's premiere, which garnered 0.609 million and a drop of 200,000 people. In the key demo, 18 to 49, Gotham Knights experienced a loss of 27.7%, while overall viewership slipped by 29.72%. Batwoman, Black Lightning, and Legends of Tomorrow all had similar numbers and drops before being canceled. The difference is those shows took a few years to slide off the cliff. Gotham Knights is in its first season and should be in its prime with a built-in audience, or would be if the writing was better and if anybody cared. As noted, the CW is moribund and the Arrowverse is over, victims of wokeness and increasingly cheaper looking programming. Critics are ravaging Gotham Knights 2, leading to a very disappointing and dismaying Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 18%. The audience score is better, but at 53% remains underwhelming. It's the lowest scoring DC series of them all, and after Batwoman and Naomi, that's saying something. In a short period of time, the Knights managed to surpass them both and flirt with cancellation early. Don't expect a second season, in case you did, but tell us what you think of this breaking news down in the comments. So, yeah, I haven't watched the show, so I don't know what it's about. Um, I know there's a video game, Gotham Knights, right, that focuses on the other Batman family characters like Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, Red Hood, and all that. But from what I've seen, like of images of the show, like I said, I haven't watched it. But that's not what this is. It's a bunch of other random, like, Gen Z characters running around fighting crime, I guess. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not watching it apparently, so I'm not the only one. No one else is really watching it either. All right. I'm almost at an hour and a half. So I'm going to do one more and then I'll wrap it up here. And this, of course, was sobering news for those who uh, are Star Trek fans, or at least who are fans of the Trek before this current iteration. So, Paramount Plus greenlights CW style Star Trek Starfleet Academy series that aims to bring in, quote, a new generation of viewers, unquote. Ay, ay, ay. So, Paramount Plus and CBS Studios announced they greenlit a new Star Trek series titled Star Trek Starfleet Academy that will focus on a group of teenage cadets. In a press release, Paramount Plus detailed the series will introduce us to a young group of cadets who come together to pursue a common dream of hope and optimism. Are you sure that's what you want? I mean, in most of these current Star Trek shows, Starfleet's actually kind of a very Machiavellian, kind of sinister organization. Under the watchful and demanding eyes of their instructors, they will discover what it takes to become Starfleet officers as they navigate blossoming friendships, explosive rivalries, first loves, and a new enemy that threatens both the Academy and the Federation itself, the press release added. The series co showrunners and executive producers, Alex Klutzman and Noga Landau, also stated, a mission is now open for Starfleet Academy. Explore the galaxy, captain your destiny. For the first time in over a century, our campus will be reopened to admit individuals, a minimum of 16 Earth years or species equivalent, who dream of exceeding their physical, mental, and spiritual limits, who value friendship, camaraderie, honor, and devotion to a cause greater than themselves. They continued, the coursework will be rigorous, the instructors among the brightest lights in their respective fields, and those accepted will live and study side by side with the most diverse population of students ever admitted. Today, we encourage all who share our dreams, goals, and values to bring a new generation of visionary cadets as they take their first steps toward creating a bright future for us all. Apply today. Oh, God damn it. God damn it. Okay. Paramount Streaming's chief marketing officer and head of data Dominic DeMeglio also said, "We are excited to introduce Star Trek fans to a whole new generation of Starfleet officers in training as they navigate the rigors of the Academy and the brink of adulthood in Starfleet Academy. Introducing new players and compelling storylines, this all new series will serve as a fantastic addition to the franchise and Paramount Plus, bringing new generations of viewers and long term Star Trek fans alike together to enjoy the next chapter in the iconic Star Trek universe," DeMeglio stated. CBS studio president David Stapp also shared his thoughts. As we continue to explore more of the Star Trek universe, we're thrilled to bring Star Trek Starfleet Academy to fans around the world as the next chapter in this expanding franchise. Alex Kurtzman and Noga Landau's vision is a smart. Give me stop it. Smart. Fuck you. Uh, and thrilling. Well, it's a matter of opinion. Take that celebrates the core principles of what Star Trek has always stood for. No, it doesn't really. But through the eyes of the next generation of Starfleet's leaders, he praised. Well, that's a bunch of like bullshit. As noted above, Klutzman and Landau will be co-showrunners and will also be executive producers on the show. There's some other people who gives a fuck. Roddenberry's one of them. Whatever. First episode is written by Gaia Viola, whoever that is, produced by CBS Studios in association with Secret Hideout and Roddenberry Entertainment. The series will go into production in 2024. A comic book series titled Star Trek Starfleet Academy was published by IDW in 2015. The series was set before J.J. Abrams' directed 2009 Star Trek and followed the crew of the Enterprise during their years as students at Starfleet Academy. The series also introduced other cadets and followed them on their own adventures. It does not appear that the show has any connection to the comic book series, albeit it did have a similar framework with the introduction of new cadets and showcasing their activities at Starfleet Academy. Boy. Yeah, Star Trek is fucked, folks. It's screwed. Don't expect it to get any better. And and this goes for both Star Trek and Star Wars. They're both screwed. They're not going to get any better. It's not going to happen. So my advice is you just move on. Just move on with your life because this is going to be crap. I'm not even going to start on it. But I'm at the hour and a half mark, so that's gone long enough. So I will go ahead and wrap it up here. Again, I want to thank those who have watched this stream and who will tune in for the rewatch of it. Thank you all for doing so. And until next week, thank you for stopping by and have a good weekend and good night.